Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and Deutsche Bank has been sued for running an international criminal organization in Italian court. And as the Zero Hedge article says, having been accused and found guilty of rigging and manipulating virtually every possible asset class, perhaps it was inevitable that Deutsche Bank, currently on trial in Milan for helping Banca Monte de Paschi conceal losses, is now facing accusations that it was actually running an international criminal organization at the time. I don't think that would surprise any of us. I believe that is exactly precisely what we've been saying all along. And I think banks are the best example of international criminal organizations, but I think most of our viewers are thinking the same thing. Now it goes on to say, in the closely watched lawsuit, prosecutors used internal Deutsche Bank documents and emails to persuade a three-judge panel to rule that there were additional aggravating circumstances to the charges the German lender already faces related to various derivatives transactions. As Bloomberg reported overnight, material included a London trader's "well done" message to a banker who is now on trial. So John, can you break this down? What does all of this mean?
Well, what's going on in Italy, of course, is this whole Monte de Paschi scandal that's been coming out, where they bailed in twice already, where they take in shareholders and depositors' capital to recapitalize the bank, basically stealing your money that you had into the account. Of course, through this, what they have found is they found serious implications with Deutsche Bank and Japanese bank Nomura, which has been in there using derivatives, probably special purpose vehicles, SPVs and SP special purpose entities, to take things off of Montepaschi's balance sheet and hide it in these entities in the shadow banking system. And then, Montepaschi looked a lot better than it was, which was insolvent. Now, of course, I think some of the best people at this is the Italians. They've dealt with so many mafiosos over the time. And of course, in my point of view, the banksters, like the gangsters,
Yeah.
they are probably some of the most equipped lawyers to defeat these guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, the bankers are the big-time mafiosos. The mafia that we see on TV and movies, the stereotypical type of mafia, they're small-time. They don't know. They're little tiny bits of money, millions of dollars. But these bankers, they deal with billions of dollars, and they manipulate global markets. And this is much more big-time than these small-time little gangsters, especially those, street gangs in LA and across the United States and other places that think they're all big time with their pants around their ankles, but yeah. I mean, they're nothing. They are just small potatoes compared to what we see in the banking system.
Yeah, no, Deutsche Bank again is just showing why they're insolvent. It's basically an insolvent bank helping an insolvent bank. They're buddies, in this game, trying to play the monopoly game until somebody is left with a bank run on their hands. And we see, of course, here in Canada right now, we have the Home Capital Group bank run, which is having massive implications and probably over a very short period of time could end up into a bank run into other banks as people are looking for withdrawing assets.
Well, there's already a bit of a contagion when you consider Equitable Bank, yeah, which has seen part of this trauma. But I mean, I think it's important to mention what we've mentioned in the past, that Deutsche Bank, of course, was found guilty in a court of law last year for manipulating the price of gold alongside banks such as HSBC, BNP Paribas, Bank of America, Scotia Bank, all these other banks. They were involved in manipulating the price of gold. So it's in an artificial bear market when it's been a bull market since 2012. And many people have commented in our interviews in the past that in fact gold should be much higher than it is today. And of course, at the same time, we're seeing a so-called fall of gold, where it's basically just an artificial fall where we are looking at massive amounts of ETFs versus where you can actually see, I believe it was about a 9% rise in buying up of physical gold. But we're seeing the price go down due to this massive manipulation due to these ETFs, these paper contracts. So John, what do you think think is next with Deutsche Bank? A bank, by the way, that last year when we reported on it at the beginning of the year had a derivative exposure of $75 trillion. Of course, it's gone down, but the point is clear. They like to manipulate.
Well, Deutsche Bank is an insolvent bank. They've been that for the last couple of years. They are just playing the game of trying to hide, who could hide their assets for the longest amount of time until some prosecutors suddenly finds them. Now, going back to the accusation that Deutsche Bank is a global cartel, the prosecution requests to label Deutsche Bank an international criminal organization association hinge on events that occurred in other parts of the globe, including the possible manipulation of an index. There's not just one index here that is getting manipulated. Yeah. There's a massive amount of different type of indexes, like the VIX. They also manipulate currencies like the yen, US dollar trade, and then the central banks, what they do is they have these little minions, the banks, running around and trying to manipulate certain aspects of things so they could set, for example, the interest rate to a certain point, and then what trades are you going to do? So they have these high frequency algorithm bots out there doing these trades in order to work with the Federal Reserve, keeping the market stable. So it's a massive global
apparatus.
Yeah, it's a massive global apparatus that is manipulating on a global vast scale, and it's everywhere. All these banks are colluding, not just the banks themselves like the Mura and others. We're talking about the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, Bank of Canada, Bank of India, of course the Federal Reserve. All these banks are just passing the hat, and the ECB, they're just passing the hat around. Okay, you manipulate over there, and then we'll wait off a little bit so we can, look like we're, trying to make the market work. Yeah. And then, of course, there's other guys over here, manipulating big time. So what you're seeing here is just, I think, the end game of the bankster cartel, because every time they try to implement schemes or manipulate a trade or do whatever they can, all of them are jumping into one part of a trade to manipulate and siphoning out as much money as they can, while suddenly when everybody is doing the same thing, you will have a collapse.
Absolutely.
Because that's where you're moving. There's more and more people doing the same thing. And as, of course, James Rickards could say with the long-term capital management collapse, it was just more and more people getting into their trade and taking their trades, so now everybody's trading the same. And like, you can't do that for a long time. There has to be buyers and sellers of things.
Well, I mean, these artificial debt-based derivative markets are always set to fail. They're always set to crash, just like fiat currency is always set to crash. It's always set to revert to its intrinsic value of zero. Always has, always will. The fundamentals, as we always mention, are off the table, so you can't actually put a date on it. But things are getting crazier by the day, and that is just part of the I guess a natural fluctuation of things when something is so artificial.
Well, the problem here is the leverage that they're creating. When you start to leverage asset classes that are supposed to be, at 1-to-1, and you have them at 200, 300, 500 to 1 with paper contracts slushing around in the world economy, at one point they're going to come down to a free market equilibrium where the free market are saying all these contracts. Well, it comes down to when somebody, this is how it's working. Let's use the gold, because that's where I'm more well versed in gold. Of course, when an ETF suddenly comes up and somebody wants to withdraw a massive amount of contracts, but they want it in physical metal, when suddenly the delivery of that physical metal is not possible because it's so over leveraged with contracts, there you go, there's the collapse, and then all the other commodity markets will collapse along with it, and then suddenly you would have a new price which will just blow your mind, because it was so manipulated with all this fake paper slushing around when there's such a limited amount of commodities at the bottom of it. But they, of course, makes the trading fees forth and back, and that's where they make all this money on manipulating everything. Mm-hmm. They just leverage whatever is underlying assets, and then they make a truckload of money. They fraudulently manipulate everything and create so much more extra things there, and it's a fake economy.
So what is your bottom line, John?
Well, the bottom line here is we need to understand that these criminal organizations, as they're getting trialed for now in Italy, these banks, and there's so many of it's mostly the major banks that are the worst here. They are running an international criminal cartel together. Of course, the Federal Reserve is heavily implicated in that and is the main player. So what you need to understand is you need to not let these banks manipulate your assets. If you are out, and of course this is my opinion, when you are out in these paper markets and trying to buy things and think that it's a value that's supposed to be, for example, gold is supposed to be 1268 or whatever it is right now, you need to understand that all this paper is not it's not the real value of things. You need to understand to hold real things and control your assets, not just have a bunch of paper here that could disappear and evaporate in value.
Yeah, of course. You have to insure yourself. You have to diversify. You have to make sure that you're able to insure yourself and your family when it comes to the inevitable fiat crash and the market bubbles that we are watching from every single angle today in every single country for the most part. And it really comes down to self-sustainability. So being able to have food, water, shelter, defense, and of course sound money. And those are the fundamentals to being able to thrive in an environment that's so hostile. But thanks for going into this, John, and we'll get back to you with much more on this subject as we have for a long time now. Obviously, we've watched this story develop with Deutsche Bank for a while, and Germany and the banking system and the manipulation of the markets and the manipulation of the monetary system, and we will continue to do that as long as we are still breathing. But until next time, check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored by YouTube. You could also see our Bitcoin address in the description and the comments, as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And also check our link to the Red Pill Expo taking place June 23rd to 24th in Bozeman, Montana, where you could see people like Robert Kiyosaki, G. Edward Griffin, Richard Gage, Jeff Berwick, Ty Bollinger, Mike Adams, Cynthia McKinney, James Corbett, John Rappaport, and so many more incredible speakers, and we hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.